So welcome to my home garden. Today I'm going to be giving you a back garden update of all the things I've got growing. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment and also my home kitchen. Now everything is coming along really quickly. It's absolutely fantastic. So harvesting is a major thing that I'm doing at the moment. If we just come over and look at the tomatoes. So as you can see, I've already harvested all those off already this morning. A nice big basketful there. Obviously they're nice to eat fresh, but when I've got as many as those, I'll be making some passata with those either later today or tomorrow. So what I'm doing now is I'm just pulling off all the ripe tomatoes. So a job you still need to be doing is obviously taking with your tomatoes, taking off any ripe tomatoes, still tying them up and pinching out any side shoots, and obviously still feeding them. I'm feeding them every couple of weeks now, so there's still things to be done there. So if I just take the last of those off and I can get the rest off a little bit later. But yeah, so most of the jobs today are just really harvesting. My aubergines are completely amazing, so getting grafted aubergines is definitely worth the extra money in my opinion. As you can see, loads of aubergines on there, and I've already taken 3 off these plants. Look, beautifully big aubergines. If you've never grown aubergines before, you do literally just cut them off when they're the size you want them to be. So you can cut them off a little bit smaller if you want. I mean, that's quite a nice size. I could let it get a little bit bigger, but I've got so many on some of these plants. In fact, one of them, this one, look, 3 growing all very closely together. If I'm honest, I can't believe they're growing so well. I've got 6 and I probably only needed 3 plants, if I'm honest with you. So these are definitely a success. I'll definitely be buying grafted plants rather than starting them off from seed. And these are little tiny cucumber melons. They're not quite ready to pick, but they won't take long. As you can see, they're just starting to fall on here. So they're growing up this little bit of, it's actually an old shelf from one of those little plastic greenhouses that I had lying around spare, and that's working really well. So I haven't put any on there yet that are big enough to pick, but it really won't be long, and I'm sure I'll be harvesting those probably in a couple of weeks, I reckon. So as we come over, I've moved my peppers out of the greenhouse because they seem to get more pests and bugs on them in there, and I find that keeping them outside, quite often it's not quite so bad, and it is really hot at the moment, so it's fine to have them out here. My strawberries, I am picking a few strawberries off, but if I'm honest, I mean, I've got one on there. If I'm honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm going to try and find room up at the allotment. I think they'd be better off in the ground. So as we move over, I've got my cucumbers. Now these are doing absolutely fantastically. These are actually meant to be lunchbox ones, but they're growing so big. As you can see, I've got absolutely bountiful amounts of them. Now cucumbers are so incredibly good for you. I actually, rather than slicing them, I chop them up and dice them a little bit more, and I'm eating a lot more cucumber at the moment, and I think I'm going to have to start looking up some smoothie recipes because I'm just getting an absolute abundance. This should be probably half the size of that. They've only been there a couple of days and they're growing, so they should be about this size here, more like maybe a little bit bigger than that. I shouldn't really complain because it's a really good problem to have that my cucumbers are growing really well, because if I'm honest, I struggle a little bit with cucumbers and they can sometimes be a little bit bitter, but these little lunchbox size ones are definitely a winner. I'm going to be growing those again. So one thing I'm going to be doing, which I've not done yet, in the next couple of days, I had some radishes in here. Well, all the ones that I had I've either picked or they've bolted, so I'm going to be sowing some more radishes, and you could do that too if you've not sown any radishes, and because they're really quite fast growing, so there's something that will crop really quickly. So only take a few weeks to produce more radishes, so I'm definitely going to be sowing some more radishes. The chickens are doing really well in there. They're laying really well, so, which is absolutely fantastic. Most days we're getting 3 to 4 eggs, so although it's not technically a vegetable harvest, it's still food that I'm growing myself. So as we move round, I've got some herbs in the summer house, which I keep meaning to get planted out, but they just don't seem to have made it. So I've got some basil, some parsley, the coriander has gone to seed unfortunately. I've got some dill, which I need to try and get out somewhere, some chives, and I've also started off some spring onions, and when these spring onions get a little bit bigger, I will plant those out on my allotment. It's a much easier way to get your spring onions to germinate in a little pot, rather than, I find that they don't germinate very well in the ground for some reason. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of my back garden. I'd love to know how everyone else is doing with the things that they're growing. If you've got any questions or queries, as ever, please do put them in the comments.